You know that feeling when you're up really, really early on a summer morning? It's cool, it's quiet, the world is still kind of bathed in that gray pre-dawn light. Well, somewhere in a nest, a single bumblebee is about to make a huge decision. She's going to be the first one to leave, the one who kicks off the entire colony's work.
So, what's the signal, right? What tells that one bee, okay, now's the time to fly? It sounds like a super simple question, but trust me, the answer takes us on this amazing journey into how animals, read the world around them. And it is so much cooler and more elegant than you could ever imagine.
All right, so let's get into the puzzle. Researchers, of course, wanted to solve this, so they started gathering all this data. When did the first bee leave? What was the temperature? When did the sun rise? Was it raining? They were on the hunt for that one single trigger.
And at first, the answer seems totally obvious, doesn't it? You'd think a bee just waits. It waits for it to get warm enough or bright enough, or maybe for the morning dew to dry up. It's a tiny little insect, right? That just makes sense.
But, of course, there's a but. The minute they started digging into the data, all those simple, neat explanations just started to crumble. You'd have days where the bees would leave super early, even though it was still really cold. And then, on other, much warmer days, they just hang around and wait. The mystery was actually getting bigger, not smaller.
So, this kicked off a full-blown investigation. Think of it like a crime scene. They had to line up all the usual suspects. Temperature, the sun, rain. Each one had to be grilled, to see if it was the real culprit making the bee's decision.
And you know what? None of the suspects' stories checked out. They looked at the exact temperature when the first bee left. The connection was super weak, totally inconsistent. Okay, what about sunrise? Now this was interesting. Bees never left before sunrise, but they didn't leave right at sunrise either. So sunrise wasn't the trigger, it was more like a gate opening. It gave them permission to leave, but it didn't tell them when to actually walk through it.
So let's just recap the evidence, because it's kind of wild when you lay it all out. 1. Bees never leave before sunrise. Got it? 2. But when they leave after that is all over the place. 3. The actual temperature? A terrible predictor. And get this, 4. They often leave when it's pretty much the coldest point of the entire night. And 5. Rain might send them home early, but it doesn't necessarily stop them from heading out in the first place. See? None of these clues make sense on their own. They're all contradictory. But together, they're pointing us in a totally new direction.
And this is where we get the breakthrough. This is the turning point in the whole story. It's the moment the researchers stopped asking what the trigger was and started asking how. How are these bees actually sensing their world? It was a total paradigm shift.
The breakthrough was realizing they were looking at the wrong thing. It wasn't about a fixed point in time or a static number, like what's the temperature at 6 a.m.? No, the answer was in the change. It was in the movement of that number. It was all about the trend, which direction the world was heading.
And that thinking revealed this one single, absolutely critical moment that happens every single night. Let's call it T0. T0 is that perfect turning point. It's the exact moment when the night stops getting colder and finally starts to warm up, even just a tiny bit. It's literally the coldest point of the night, the very bottom of the temperature curve.
And here's the magic. As soon as they started looking at the data relative to this moment, to T0, everything snapped into focus. All that mess, all that confusion, it just melted away. And what they found underneath was this beautiful, simple rule that explained everything.
Get this, on a dry morning, that first worker bee leaves almost exactly at T0. Not an hour later, not when it hits a certain temperature. She leaves at the precise moment the world stops getting colder and begins its slow, steady climb toward day. It's incredible.
And this is just so important to understand. This isn't a decision based on a clock. The bee doesn't have a little watch. This is a decision based on physics. She's not calculating anything. She's responding directly to the physical state of the world around her. She can literally feel the tide turning.
But okay, of course, nature is never that simple. There's always a twist, right? So, what happens when it rains? Rain is a huge deal for a tiny insect trying to fly. But what's so cool is that rain doesn't break the rule. It just adjusts it. So, on a dry morning, she leaves right at T0. Simple. But if it's raining pretty hard, she still uses T0 as her starting pistol. She just waits a little longer, until the temperature has climbed about 1 degree Celsius above that coldest point. It's the same rule, just with a little safety buffer built in. Smart, right?
So you can basically boil down this whole seemingly complex decision into a 2-point checklist. Condition 1, is the world getting warmer? Is that temperature trend positive? Check. Condition 2, is it not raining too hard right now? Check. If you get 2 checks, it's time to fly.
Okay, but why? Why this rule? I mean, why is this so much better than just waiting until it's, I don't know, 15 degrees out? The answer is all about survival, and it's just beautiful in its simplicity.
See, a bee isn't waiting for the air to be comfortable. She's waiting for it to be viable. Think about it. Air that's still getting colder is dangerous. It makes her flight muscles work way harder, it burns more energy. If something goes wrong and she has to land, it's tougher to get going again. But air that's warming up, even if it's still objectively cold, is a sign that things are getting better. T0 is that perfect moment when risk turns into opportunity.
So, this whole sophisticated system, this whole mystery, it all comes down to the bee sensing the answers to 3 super simple physical questions. Number 1, is the world warming up or is it still cooling down? Number 2, is it light enough for me to see? And number 3, is it raining too hard for me to actually fly? That's it. That's the entire program. And it is flawless.
And that's why, tomorrow morning, as the night finally lets go, that first little bumblebee will step out into the world. She's not leaving because a clock told her to. She's leaving because, in the most literal sense, the world has turned. And she knows it. That simple, physical truth is all the signal she needs to start her day.